You clicked because you want to know which trucks are actually still cheap right now, and which ones are already vanishing off dealer lots. That's exactly what this is. 7 of them, ranked, starting with the one nobody's watching yet. Number 7 is the truck that snuck up on everybody. The Ford Maverick, specifically the base hybrid trim, that showed up a few years ago promising a shockingly low starting price and real fuel economy in a segment that had basically given up on both. At first, dealers treated it like a curiosity, something you'd point at, not buy. Then the math started working in its favor. Gas prices climbed, financing got tighter, and suddenly a small truck that sips fuel instead of gulping, it looked less like a compromise and more like the smart move. Buyers who wanted a full-size truck 2 years ago are now cross-shopping the Maverick instead, because they can actually afford the monthly payment. Inventory data from multiple dealer groups shows lots that used to carry a dozen of these sitting with 2 or 3, sometimes none. Allocation from the factory hasn't caught up. And here's the part that surprises people. The cheapest trim, the one with almost no options, is the hardest one to find. Everybody wants the bargain version, which means the bargain version disappears first. That's a pattern you're going to see again on this list, and it gets more dramatic the further we go. Number 6 is the Chevrolet Colorado, coming from a brand that spent years being the safe, boring, mid-sized choice, then quietly repositioned its entry trim as the value king of the segment. The base configuration strips out almost everything you'd call a luxury feature, which sounds like a downside until you realize that's precisely why the price stayed low while every competitor crept upward. Reliability ratings for this generation have stayed consistently strong, and word travels fast in truck communities, forums, group chats, word of mouth from a neighbor who's had 0 issues in 3 years. That kind of quiet reputation doesn't show up in flashy ads, but it shows up in sales numbers. Regional dealers in several states have reported waiting lists forming for the base trim specifically, while higher trims with more markups sit untouched. That's backwards from how dealerships usually want inventory to move, and it's putting pressure on manufacturers to rethink how many stripped-down units they build. There's also a used market ripple effect nobody predicted. Because new stock is thin, buyers are chasing lightly used versions of this same trim, and prices on those have started creeping closer to new vehicle territory. Normally, that gap is significant. Right now, it's shrinking fast, which tells you something about how tight this specific segment has become. But neither the Maverick nor the Colorado is the one causing dealers the biggest headache. The next truck on this list has a backstory involving a canceled model, a surprise return, and a price point almost nobody expected. Number 5 is the Ford Ranger, and it's the comeback nobody saw coming. This nameplate got discontinued in the U.S. years ago, quietly phased out while the manufacturer chased bigger, more profitable trucks. Then something shifted. Demand for small, simple, affordable pickups didn't die with the model. It just had nowhere to go. So the company brought it back, built on a modern platform, but priced like something out of an older decade. Early production numbers were small, almost cautious, like the manufacturer didn't fully trust the comeback would work. It worked. Reservations filled up before most people even knew it was back on sale. Dealers in rural markets, where cheap trucks move the fastest, started reporting 0-day sellouts, meaning the truck sold before it technically arrived on the lot. That's not marketing spin, that's a logistics problem. And there's a twist here that even loyal fans didn't expect. Resale values on the very first batch have already climbed above the original sticker price in some private listings. A brand new vehicle appreciating instead of depreciating is rare enough to make headlines on its own, and it's happening with a Ranger that most people wrote off as gone for good. Number 4 flips the story in a different direction. It's the Nissan Frontier, and this one isn't a comeback. It's a quiet price war inside its own lineup. Instead of letting the base trim quietly fade into the background the way most brands do, Nissan kept undercutting its own pricing year after year, trying to hold onto the title of most affordable, capable truck on the market. Nobody at the company expected demand to spike the way it did. What usually happens in a price war is thinner margins and slower sales, because buyers assume something got cut to hit that number. This time, buyers didn't care what got cut. They saw a real truck towing real weight at a price that used to belong to compact sedans, and they lined up. Supply chain analysts tracking this segment noted a pattern that should sound familiar by now. The stripped, no-frills trim moved off lots almost twice as fast as trims with added packages. Manufacturers built their forecasts around the opposite assumption, expecting buyers to trade up. They didn't. That miscalculation is part of why waitlists for the base Frontier have stretched into months in several regions, especially where fuel costs and commuting distances make an affordable workhorse genuinely necessary rather than optional. 2 trucks in, and the pattern keeps repeating. Cheap sells first, cheap sells fastest, and manufacturers keep underestimating exactly how many people want cheap. The next one on this list breaks that pattern completely, and it's the strangest entry so far. Number 3 is the Jeep Gladiator, and it's the one that breaks the pattern because this truck isn't selling out because it's cheap. It's selling out because it's the last cheap version of something that's about to disappear. This midsize pickup still offers a bare-bones manual-adjacent trim, minimal tech, steel wheels, the kind of setup that used to be standard and is now treated like a relic. Rumors have been circulating for over a year that the next Gladiator redesign will drop this trim entirely, pushing the starting price up by several $1,000s to align with where the rest of the market has drifted. Buyers heard that rumor, and instead of shrugging, they went and bought the truck before it's gone, a kind of last-chance panic that dealers rarely see outside of discontinued sports cars or limited editions. Nobody expected a work truck to trigger that kind of urgency. Sales data from the last 2 quarters shows exactly what you'd expect once people start thinking this way. A spike that doesn't match seasonal patterns, concentrated almost entirely on the lowest trim, with higher trims moving at their normal, unremarkable pace. It's not hype. It's a closing window, and enough buyers noticed it to create genuine scarcity months before the redesign has even been confirmed. Number 2 is the Ram 1500, and it might be the most consequential entry on this entire list because it isn't really about one truck. It's about an entire strategy shift across the industry. For years, manufacturers assumed cheap trucks existed mainly to get people into the showroom, a loss leader designed to be upsold into something pricier the moment a salesperson got involved. The Ram 1500 Tradesman broke that assumption. Its base trim became the actual bestseller, not the bait. Buyers walked in, looked at the fully loaded version, did the math, and walked right back to the cheap one anyway. That's not supposed to happen according to decades of dealership playbooks. Executives at more than one manufacturer have publicly acknowledged, in earnings calls and interviews, that they underestimated how price-sensitive the truck market had become after years of rising costs across nearly every other category of ownership. Insurance, fuel, maintenance, all of it climbed, and buyers responded by refusing to let the truck itself be the expensive part of the equation. The result is a production schedule that's now been adjusted mid-cycle to build more base trims than originally planned, something that almost never happens once a model year's manufacturing plan is locked in. That kind of correction costs money. Manufacturers made it anyway, because ignoring the demand would have cost more. And then there's number 1. The truck causing the most chaos on lots across the country isn't the cheapest on paper. It's the one nobody thought would still be affordable at all. Number 1 is the Ford F-150. Not a compact, not a midsize, the actual full-size, work-ready pickup that everyone assumed had permanently priced itself out of the cheap conversation years ago. For over a decade, the story around full-size trucks was simple. They only go up. New emissions requirements, new safety tech, new materials, new expectations from buyers who wanted trucks that doubled as luxury vehicles. Somewhere in that climb, one manufacturer looked at the numbers and made a decision that seemed almost reckless. Keep a genuinely stripped, regular cab, base engine F-150 in production, priced closer to what a mid-size truck costs, instead of letting the whole lineup drift upward together. Everyone assumed nobody would want it. Fleet buyers, sure, maybe some contractors. Not regular families, not first-time truck owners. That assumption collapsed almost immediately. This is the version that dealers now describe as impossible to keep on the lot for more than a few days, sometimes hours. Individual buyers, not fleets, are the ones snapping it up, largely because it's the only entry point left into full-size capability without a full-size price tag attached. Some dealers have started limiting how many units go to advertised inventory listings at all, because the moment one shows up online, phones start ringing before it's even been detailed. That's the loop this entire list keeps circling back to. The cheapest, simplest version of anything with 4 wheels and a bed is the version everyone secretly wanted, and the industry keeps getting caught underestimating it. So here's the actual takeaway, the thing worth remembering after all 7 of these. It's not really about trucks. It's about what happens when a market spends years chasing higher margins, more features, and bigger price tags, while quietly ignoring a huge portion of buyers who just wanted something simple and affordable that still does the job. Every truck on this list sold out for basically the same reason. Manufacturers didn't believe the demand for cheap was real, built accordingly, and got proven wrong almost every single time. That's a pattern worth watching if you're planning to buy any vehicle in the next year, not just a pickup. The stripped down trim you assume nobody wants might be exactly the one that disappears first. If this kind of breakdown is useful, the stuff dealers don't advertise, the patterns behind why certain vehicles vanish off lots, sticking around and subscribing means you won't miss the next one because this market is shifting fast, and the next surprise on this list is probably already happening at a dealership near you.